أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. All praises are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the universe, and may his peace and blessings be upon our noble messenger Prophet Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Future Stars on Hidayat TV. I'm your host Hassan Shah, and today we are continuing with our series on talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Last week, well, for the past 2 weeks, we've talked about the creator and the creation. So we've started we started by talking about the universe, the creation of the universe, what does science say, what does the Quran say, and then we looked into a little bit deeper into knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, proving the existence of Allah, proving the existence of God. Today we're going to be looking at why some people may refuse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may reject God, and let's focus and talk about the ma'rifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that mean? Hopefully we can get onto that on today's show. So before we start, I'd like to introduce everyone joining me today.
My name's Nisba.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Mohsin.
Alright, thank you for that introduction. Okay, so I'm going to start us on with an ayat from the Holy Quran. So the first section of what we're going to be talking about today and discussing is, why do people refuse to believe in God? Why are some people reluctant, don't agree? Why do they disagree with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the existence of Allah, or the belief in Allah? Okay, so we'll start off with the ayat from Surah Al-Kahf, 18th Surah, 29th ayat. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and say, this is the truth from your Lord. Let anyone who wishes believe it, and let anyone who wishes disbelieve in it. Okay, so we have the ayat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, definitely linking with that first topic that we're going to be talking about today. Why people refuse to believe in God. Okay, so for this first part, we're going to look at some of the reasons why people choose to disbelieve, and look at maybe their arguments, some of the arguments that they have, and also to explain the difference between these two words. So we have the two English words that we'll focus on today, as well as other Arabic terms. So firstly, what is the word atheist? What is that? And agnostic. What do these words mean, and what's the difference between the two? So hopefully we'll talk about that today, and also we'll relate a dua, seeking Allah's protection against disbelief. So let's look at a dua as well, because that's a really important, powerful thing as well. Okay, so I have three Arabic words for us. Hopefully we can maybe understand and learn them today. So the first one is kafir. So when I say kafir, well, what do you guys reckon the meaning of that is?
Unbeliever.
Disbeliever.
Disbeliever. Okay. So shahr. Sheen and a ra with a tashdid on it. Any of you know what that is?
It's like the opposite. So
Say that again, sorry.
is that the opposite of kafir? So like believer.
No. So evil, evil, and then the last one is khair. Any of you heard of that word before?
Is that like the opposite? So good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so we've talking about the creator and the creation. So last two episodes we focused on the creation and the creator. First one we talked about what does the creation of the universe, the difference, and how science sees it, how religion sees it, and what's the correlation between the two. And then we focused on knowing Allah, proving Allah in the last episode. So now we're going to touch on at this start part, talking about why do people refuse to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'll pass that over to you guys. So can we start? Miss Waqt salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Previously, we looked at clear proofs for the existence of Allah. Despite this, there are many people today who refuse to believe in Him. The Holy Quran says about these people in Surah Yusuf, Surah 12, verse 105, "How many a sign there is in the heavens and the earth that they pass by while they turn away from them." Throughout history, there have been people who have denied belief in Allah and refused to follow the true path to which Allah has invited them through His Anbiya and His books. Instead, they have rejected both Allah's revelation and belief in the Day of Judgment. Today, we'll examine a few reasons why some people choose disbelief over faith and evaluate their arguments. Reasons for disbelief. Some reasons why some people do not believe in Allah include: number one, arrogance. Some people refuse to believe in Allah because they are too stubborn or they have too much pride. They do not want to obey Allah but instead want to be free to live as they please. Believing in Allah will restrict their freedom, and so they simply decide not to believe in Him. Islam says, without any doubt, the source of this kind of attitude is that person's arrogance. Allah tells us in the Quran, in Surah An-Nahl, Surah 16, verse 22, "Your God is the one God. Those who do not believe in the hereafter, their hearts are in denial and they are arrogant." Remember, Fir'aun was one such person who refused to believe in Allah due to his arrogance and thought himself to be superior. Allah narrates his story and arrogant attitude to us in the Holy Quran and reminds us of his fate. Has the story of Musa reached you? When his Lord called out to him in the holy valley of Tuwa and said, "Go to Fir'aun, for indeed he has rebelled," and say, "Would you purify yourself? I will guide you to your Lord, that you may fear him." Then he showed him the greatest sign, but he denied and disobeyed. Then he turned back, walking swiftly, and mustered the people and proclaimed, saying, "I am your exalted Lord." So Allah seized him with the punishment of this life and the hereafter. Surah An-Nazir, Surah 75, verse 15 to 25. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, so what does we've had the ayat from the beginning where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really explains to us that that truth is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah. So anyone who wishes, yeah, to believe in it, and anyone who don't wishes, they don't believe in it. Yeah, it's as simple as that, as Allah has stated. And also Allah talking about that people even when given clear proofs, when given the truth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we know Allah says in the Quran that even then there will be people who will deny this. Yeah, and Mr. gave the ayah from Surah Yusuf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "How many a sign there is in the heavens and the earth that they pass by it and they turn away from it." So even when these clear things are given to people, what we need to understand is that not all people will, even when given all these things, we would not even they still turn away and turn away, as Allah mentions in the ayat. Okay, so just before we get onto that first reason that Mr. mentioned, so those two words that we mentioned at the start, so atheism and agnostic. Yeah. So Molten, if I told you, if I asked you, what is the difference between the two, what would you say?
I would say that an atheist doesn't believe in a god, but an atheist doesn't rule out the possibility that there could be a god.
So an agnostic doesn't rule out that possibility, but an atheist says that there isn't a god. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So here I've got some kind of definitions of these two words. So atheism is the absence of belief in God or spiritual beings, believing that they are myths and legends. Yeah. So this belief in God, so from an atheistic point of view, is what that first of all, atheism is the absence of that belief in God. Yeah, and it believes. Yeah, so atheism believes, yeah, that the idea of God is from myths and legends. Yeah. So the word atheism comes from a meaning without, and theism meaning a belief in God or gods. Yeah. So atheism. Okay. So an agnostic either believes that it is impossible to know whether there is a God or is non um, committal. So does not decide on the issue, so does not know. Yeah. So Mohsin did give he gave the right description there. Okay, so those are the two differences of those words. Okay, so now looking at the reasons of disbelief. Yeah. So the first reason, what did Misbah establish that we can? One of the reasons that we can give for disbelief.
Arrogance.
Yeah, arrogance. Accepting that there is something higher than you is definitely some one is you need to chuck away your arrogance, you need to chuck away your pride, but also the actions that you do in religion. Yeah, could you go in sujood with arrogance? That action itself is to remove all your arrogance. Yeah. So the actions of for example, sujood and prayer. Yeah, these are all things that you have to chuck away your arrogance to truly commit to. Yeah. And so this even goes for Muslims as well. Yeah, the arrogance um, blocks them from going towards their salah. Okay. So definitely arrogance is one. Why? Because of those points that Mr. mentioned and what I just brought up there, but also because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran as well that arrogance is one of the reasons why people disbelieve in God. Yeah, so Mr. gave the ayat from the 16th surah, 22nd ayat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, your God is the one God. Those who do not believe in the hereafter, their hearts are in denial and they are arrogant. Yeah. So arrogance is definitely one of those reasons why why there's a barrier between some people and the belief in the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So just for those few bits, yeah. What can we do? Yeah, what can be some of the actions that we can do? Yeah. So Allah exists, and one day, even those who have refused to believe in Him will have to admit that they were wrong. The very fact that we believe in Allah is a blessing from Him, and that we should be grateful for that. We should always pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us on the right path. So there are two du'as that we can read. Yeah. Two short du'as. Yeah. And basically we can ask, so one of them, the translation being, all praises belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who guides us to this, and we would have never been guided had Allah not guided us. Yeah. So these two du'as are mentioned in the Quran as well. So this first one from Surah Al-A'raf, this is the 33rd ayat if you want to go check, and the next one is from Surah Al-Imran, and it's the 8th ayat. So the next one is they say, our Lord, do not make our hearts swerve after you have guided us, and bestow your mercy upon us. Indeed, you are all magnificent. Yeah. Okay, so two du'as there from the Quran, one from Surah Al-A'raf, one from Surah Al-Ali Imran. Yeah, the two du'as that we can put into action. Yeah, because understanding that we have belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is something that we should be grateful for. Okay, so Mohsin, you've got the next one, so you can start. Mohsin, after the loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
To lack of scientific proof that Allah exists. Some atheists do not believe in the existence of Allah because they argue that there is no reliable and scientific evidence to support this. They conclude, therefore, that there is not rational to believe in Allah. They say that if Allah interacted with our universe in any meaningful way, then the effects of his interaction would be detectable and measurable, but no such interactions have been recorded. Islam says Allah is not physically perceivable, and hence it is illogical to either try to observe Him or test for His existence. The Surah Al-Anam, the sights do not perceive Him, yet He perceives the sight, and He is all attentive, the all aware. Science can neither affirm or nor deny the existence of Allah. He cannot be put on a microscopic slide for a laboratory observation. Allah is the creator of the physical universe, but He Himself is not made of matter. Having said this, science has enabled us to find valid reasons and signs for admitting the existence of Allah. We examined some of these in the previous lesson, the order of the universe. In addition, there are many things that we believe in, though we cannot see Him. For example, electricity, gravity, feelings, etc. It is their sign and their effects that led us to believe in their existence. Scientists admit that there are many things beyond their understanding and measurement. For example, they cannot explain what happened before the Big Bang, nor can they explain the intelligent design and final order of the universe that we examined in the previous lesson. But rather than admit the existence of Allah, they come up with testable theories to explain these things. For example, one such theory is that of the multiverse, held by scientists such as Stephen Hawking, despite having absolutely no scientific or empirical evidence to support this. At the end of the day, Allah is beyond the realms of experimental science. He is not a bodily substance, and that can be perceived by our five senses, and therefore there will never be any experiment that can prove or, for that matter, disprove His existence. Allah has made His signs clear. The atheists choose to deny them. Have they not reflected on their own souls? Allah did not create the heavens and the earth and whatever is between them except with reason and for a specified term. Indeed, many of the people disbelieve in the encounter with their Lord. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, the second reason that we can state, some people can state why people don't believe in Allah, don't believe in God, is because of the lack of scientific proof that Allah exists. Misbah, is this a valid reason? If it's a valid reason, explain why. If it's not a valid reason, explain why as well.
I don't really believe it's a valid reason because there are many other things that science can't explain. So, playing the fact that Allah is not there just because there's no scientific proof doesn't make any sense. Like with what Bosun said, there are many things that science could not prove, and you can't physically see these things. And just like that we can't really physically see Allah, but we know He is there. So it doesn't really make sense for it just because there isn't the proof for the Allah to not exist.
Okay, so how does science work? How does it work? Yeah, Mohsin, if I had to ask you, how does science work? What is the method that we can use to, maybe in the simplest terms, how does science work?
What do you mean?
Like, how do we come across? Because science is the knowledge of the world, isn't it? Yeah, but how do people come about with this knowledge of the world? What do they need to do? What do they need to go through?
Experiences. Oh,
Experiences, yeah, definitely.
For example, like the infamous story of the apple falling on Isaac Newton's head. He goes through an experience that leads him to his scientific theorem.
Yeah. So science, how I would explain it, it is definitely all through experience. It's all through practical, learning, practical learning and experimentation. Yeah. So if science is based on experimentation, because everything we know we get in our science books at school, yeah, has its basis in experimentation, observation. So these great minds of science have gone out, observed, done experiments to then come to the understanding of something. But the thing is, when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we know Allah is not physical. We know we can't observe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can't do any experiments on Allah. So how can we use science to prove the exist? How can we use science to um, what's it called? Be definitive and say there is no Allah. But the thing is, science, it does not have the parameter to measure Allah. It can't do any of these things. So you can't what's it called, test something when your equipment is not right. Yeah. So that's the basis of why this reason just is not valid at all. Yeah. So um, Allah is beyond all these realms of experimental science. He's not a physical thing, and he can't be really perceived. Yeah, with our senses. Yeah. So so there won't be any experiment that can prove or disprove the existence of God. But what we can do through science is learn the signs that point towards God. Science shows us the orders of the world and how intelligently designed everything is, and that really points towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so Miss, you've got the next thing, so we can start Mr. Wahid al-Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Story time. Throughout the ages, people have wanted scientific proof of the existence of Allah, and some have refused to believe without it. Some of the people of Nabi Musa were like this. A group of 70 elders demanded to see Allah and hear His voice. Otherwise, they refused to believe in Him. They said to Nabi Musa, "O Musa, we will not believe you until we see Allah visibly." Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, verse 55. Nabi Musa explained to the people that Allah could not be seen. On their stubborn insistence, He took their request to Allah, and Allah replied, "You shall not see me, but look at the mountain. If it remains firm in its place, then you will see me." So when his Lord disclosed himself to the mountain, he leveled it, and Musa fell down in a swoon. And when he recovered, he said, "Glory be to you. I turn to you, and I am the first of the believers." When Allah disclosed himself to the mountain, it crumbled, and the people of Nabi Musa died. Allah then brought them back to life. In their ignorance, they did not know that Allah cannot be perceived by human senses. Therefore, their demand was met by another proof, the raising after death. Then He raised you up after your death so that you might give thanks. Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, verse 56. The problem of evil. The so-called problem of evil is perhaps one of the most common reasons people give for not believing in Allah. The evil being referred to here is of two types. Natural evil, suffering caused by events that have nothing to do with humans and which are to do with the way the world is, for example, natural disasters such as volcanic eruptions, floods, or earthquakes, and human/moral evil, suffering caused by humans acting in a way that is considered morally wrong, for example, bullying, murder, rape, theft, or terrorism. For the disbeliever, the existence of evil, whether it be natural or human, is inconsistent with the existence of Allah, who is good and powerful. The disbeliever may ask, if Allah exists, why there is so much evil? They argue that evil can only happen if Allah is unwilling to prevent it, in which case He is not good, or Allah does not know about it, in which case He does not know everything, or Allah cannot prevent it, in which case He is not all-powerful, or some combination of all the above. From this, they conclude that there is no being who is all good, knows everything, and is all-powerful, and so they conclude that Allah does not exist. Islam says, atheists argue that it is logically impossible for Allah and evil to coexist. They say that if Allah exists, then evil cannot exist. If evil exists, then Allah cannot exist. The problem with this argument is that there is a fundamental misunderstanding about what is good, khair, and evil, shar, and also the purpose of life. One reason that the problem of evil seems so puzzling is that we tend to think that if Allah exists, then His goal for human life is happiness in this world. This is not the case. The chief purpose of life in this world is not happiness, but rather it is for us to get to know Allah and get closer to Him. When we come to this world, our souls are like unwritten books. The purpose of life in this world is that our soul reacts to stimuli of different kinds, like sadness, happiness, comfort, discomfort, fortune, and misfortune, so that it unfolds and develops and manifests its merits, like patience, gratitude, contentment, etc. One way by which our souls can develop and find its place in the final abode is through trials and difficulties. Allah tells us in the Quran that everyone will be subject to one trial or another in Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, verse 156 to 157. And we will surely test you with a measure of fear and hunger, and a loss of wealth, lives, and fruits, and give good news to the patient, those who, when a misfortune befalls them, say, Indeed, you belong to Allah, and to Him do we surely return. Salawat.
اللهم صل
Allahumma
على
salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Okay, so thank you for that, Mr. So, Mr. Let's start off us with a story about Nabi Musa, and it really bringing that point on about the immaterial of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we can't really experiment. So removing that that thing of science being that barrier. Yeah. Okay. So another reason that some people may bring on why people don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is evil. Yeah. The problem with evil. So first of all, Ms. started off by explaining the two different types of evil. Yeah. There are the things that are natural and the things that are caused by humans. So the natural things, earthquakes, all these natural disasters that happen on the earth, they're not caused necessarily by humans. Yeah. But then we look at the other form of evil, some bad things that may happen, but those things are caused by humans. Yeah, so all these crimes and all these bad stuff that happen on this earth. Yeah, so these are, first of all, understanding that these we can categorize evils in these two categories. Yeah. So what would you say if someone explained, brought this point to you guys, yeah, that I can't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is because there is this type of evil in the world, yeah? What are some of the things that maybe you guys would respond to
How would I respond, did you say?
Yeah.
Well, I would tell them that it's kind of like the evil only exists because it's like a cause and effect. If somebody does something out of greed or selfishness, then others are going to face repercussions because of that. They should not have the right to blame Allah, who's given them these resources, and then they blame it on Him for somebody else or their own wrongdoings. The fact that evil exists is because they're not close enough to God, so they can't become their hearts have become hardened. So when they become closer to Allah, their hearts become more softer, more giving to others. So if they're away from God, then you can't expect them to be good.
Okay, so most in they're saying essentially Allah has given us free will. Yeah, it's our choice whether to do those bad things or to do good things, and it's because of the absence of the belief in God is that people will do those things. Okay, so what about you, Miss Bay? If someone posed that question to you, what would your response be?
I probably would say something similar, like the evil is there as a trial from Allah. Without that, you cannot solely achieve the purpose in life, which is to get closer to Allah. These tests that we go through, all about this learning curve to get that awareness and God consciousness. So evil has to be there for that.
Yeah, okay. So one reason that we can explain this problem of evil, yeah, and the problems that people will face in their lives, whether that be from a natural disasters or natural events that might happen, or disasters that people might cause themselves. Yeah. So one thing that maybe when the viewers and everyone who's here, when you grow up, you understand that it's really those things that troubled you the most, those things that caused you the biggest difficulties in your life, are the things that made you who you were. Yeah. So those events are those are the events that built up your character and built up your tolerance and your understanding and developed you in this world. Yeah. So it's um, so one way is through those trials that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets on you, is understanding that um, um, those build you up. So firstly, what do we have? The ayat from the Misbah read from Surah Al-Baqarah, the one where that is that famous ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends on that phrase, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, that old phrase that we all say when people pass away. Yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayat, and we will surely test you with fear, hunger, loss of wealth, lives, and fruits, and give good news to those who are patient. Yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlighting that in all these trials, yeah, it's the ones who are patient. Yeah. Those who then when misfortune hits that person, yeah, they say, what they say is, indeed we belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and indeed we shall return. So one reason that one response that we can give to this is understanding that these difficulties are the things that build us, they make us better. Yeah. So that's one avenue that we can take it. So hopefully, Mohsin, you will talk a little bit more on that. So let's start, Mohsin, off with the loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali.
Whether we get closer or not to Allah, we will depend upon our response to those trials. Do we respond with anger and bitterness towards Him, or do we turn to Him for hope and strength? Consider if someone is told to learn to swim by simply reading about it. Even if they spend their whole life reading about swimming, they will not learn how to swim until they get into the water and struggle with the danger of drowning. Even the Anbiya were subjected to trials. Nabi Ayub and Nabi Ibrahim were both subjected to trials and difficulties. Recall what you know about Nabi Ibrahim. What were the different trials he went through, and what stages and stations did he attain as a result of passing through those trials? Hardship and trials make us stronger and can bring us closer to Allah, provided we respond to them appropriately with patience and trust, knowing that they are from Allah. Freely choosing to do good and rejecting evil is what allows human beings to achieve their potential as the greatest of Allah's creation. In this way, we become even better than angels. Allah tells us in the Quran, Surah Al-Mulk, He who created death and life, that may test you to see which of you is the best in conduct, and He, the Almighty, the All-Forgiving. The Quran tells us that Allah is wise and everything that He does is right, just, good, and fair. In Surah Al-Baqarah, it may be that you dislike something while it is good for you, and it may be that you love something while it is bad for you, and Allah knows, and you do not know. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you for that, Mohsin. Yeah. Another reason why you do get these tests is to see how you deal with those tests, to see if those actions that come out from you in these circumstances are your best of action. Yeah, and ultimately, as well, knowing, understanding divine wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the whole picture, you only have a small section of that picture. Yeah, Allah can see the whole thing. Yeah, so when you think something may be bad for you, in fact it could be good for you. Or if you may think something is good for you, it may be in fact that thing is bad for you. Yeah. Okay, so Mitzvah, you've got the next thing, so we can start Mitzvah with the last salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Number 4, societal influence. Some people do not believe in Allah because of the influence of the society in which they live. A person may have grown up with parents who did not believe in Allah and never taught their children about Him. Therefore, the children, like the parents, do not believe in Allah. Similarly, to someone that was raised in a communist country is unlikely to believe in Allah because the education system and culture make being an atheist the natural and desirable thing to do. Or a person may have gone to school or college and was taught that evolution is true and that Allah is not needed since nature can account for everything. When this happens, belief in evolution takes the place of belief in Allah. What do you think Islam's responses would be for this category of people? Number 5, materialism. Others, on the other hand, are just too attached to the material world. They want to live a sinful life and take drugs, smoke, drink, or engage in sexual intercourse before marriage, and they do not want Allah telling them they should not. Therefore, they choose to believe in Allah so they can do certain things without feeling guilty. Islam says in Surah Al-Jathiyah, Surah 45, verse 23, "Have you seen him who has taken his desire to be his God?" These people think that the free enjoyment of certain things that religion has prohibited will give them happiness. They think that the religion stops all enjoyment. In fact, the opposite is true. Allah is all-powerful and does not need our worship, nor has anything to gain from it. Believing in Allah frees us from being a slave to our desires and being caught up in materialistic pleasures, not realizing this world is but temporary, and what really matters is the life in the hereafter. In Surah Al-Rum, Surah 30, verse 7, it says, They know just an outward aspect of the life of this world, but they are heedless of the hereafter. Allah has created us and knows exactly what is good, khair, for us, and what is bad, shar, for us. He has made those things that are good for our well-being as wajib upon us, and those things that are very bad for us, haram. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, so the next one being social influence. Yeah, like Misbah said, the reason why some people disbelieve in God is because their family disbelieves in God, their community disbelieves in God, maybe the country that they're living in does not have a real sense of God. So that is the default position. The default position for that person who was born in that world is to disbelieve in God. Yeah. So when they're in this environment, and like Miss proposed that question, so hopefully maybe you guys are ready to answer them. Yeah, answer this. So what is the response for this group of people? Is that a valid reason? Is it not a valid reason? What's the reason? What's the explanation of this? How can we think about this?
I believe that it is semi-valid in terms of the fact that they were placed into this world, shown that atheism is more desirable, but they also have that free will themselves to go out and self-discover what is the purpose of this life and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it does have its effect, the fact that they would have been raised in such a way, but they have that free will themselves to go out and find out the truth.
Yeah, so Allah still has installed in that person the natural disposition, that fitra. Yeah, so they know from birth they understand. They have these moral compasses of every child has that understanding of and every person has that understanding, really, is that doing harm to someone is bad. Like, for example, murder. Yeah, we all have these. So if they really abide by those moral things, and especially in our world today, where we can research, we can find out, we can learn to live better. you can learn to understand the world better. Yeah, it is really, um, not essentially a reason in that, because there are still things which are which they can do to help change. Yeah, which every person should be doing, whether you're Muslim or not. Yeah. Okay. So the last one that we have today, talking about, just to finish off quickly, is materialism, materialistic things. Yeah, because religion forbids stuff for people. Yeah. So a reason why some people will disagree and disbelieve in God is because if I now believe in God, there's some things which I can't do. Yeah. I'm if we think about it, for us, the idea of pork, this pork pig, and how it's not we are really infallible in that thing, that we've never had pork before and will never touch pork before. It's a disgusting thing if you think for a Muslim to think about someone eating it. But the idea is that what we need to know is for someone who's not Muslim, someone who disbelieves in God, even if we simple it down to food, even, yeah. So eating pork is something that that person may love doing, and it's and when they now become and now believe in God, that's something which they have to chuck away. Yeah. So if we scale it all the way down to the simplest thing of being food, yeah, there's some things that they need to chuck away. So that is maybe a barrier, because they don't want to remove these pleasures that they have in this world. Yeah. But then what does that mean? That they're just replacing one God with another. Yeah. That the ultimate God they disregard, but the God of their selves, of their own wishes and whims, they take that, put that on that throne and that position of God. Yeah. So it's ultimately everyone does believe in a God. Yeah, we all believe in different gods. Yeah, but every human has something and puts its position, puts something in that position of God. Yeah, and for a lot of people, it is their own wishes, their own pleasures, their own desires. Yeah, and so like we have the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, have you seen them who has taken his desire to be his own God? Yeah. So ultimately, we'll finish up there. So we haven't gone through, well, the title of today's episode is talking about the ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the station. We can hopefully touch on that next week. But these were the reasons why some people may refuse to believe in God. Yes, so hopefully we've understood those reasons, and now we know why some people do disbelieve in God, and understand why those reasons are illogical and invalid. So thank you, Mohsen and Mitzvah, for joining me today. Thank you as well at home for joining us on today's show, and I'll see you next week, same time, same place on Hidayat TV. But till then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.